Welcome back to part 3 of our Virginia book that I'm going to read to you today. We are talking about Virginia. She is in Gettysburg. It's the time of the Civil War and the Rebs have come to town, so let's see what happens this time. Late at night. We are in our beds now. We can still hear the rebel yells coming from the square. Jane Ellen and I both said special prayers for Becky Lee and her children. In case you've forgotten, Becky Lee had to hide her children. They were Negroes, and they were not wanting to have to go south and be slaves, so they are hiding somewhere. Mrs. Macaulay told us that Becky Lee was once a slave herself. She escaped from the South, and ever since then she has secretly helped other slaves escape. She slips over the Mason-Dixon line to Maryland and leads runaway slaves to freedom in the North. Jane Ellen said Becky Lee is the bravest person she's ever heard of. Good night, Becky Lee. Good luck. June 27th, 1863. It is barely daylight, but Mrs. Macaulay is already baking bread. That woman bakes bread all the time. She gives it to anyone who needs it. She even gave a loaf to a hungry Reb who knocked on our door last night. Mrs. Macaulay seems to think that baking bread is the best way to hold the Union together. Later, the Confederates have left Gettysburg. They left this morning without burning a single building. Mrs. Macaulay says that if the Rebs keep moving north, the train will start running again. Reverend Macaulay can return from Philadelphia, and Pa and Jed can ride back safely from Uncle Jack's farm. I confess I hate to give you back your journal, Jed, as I am starting to like writing very much. But I would rather have you than your journal any day. That is what I truly feel. Late night. It seems the Rebs have not gone very far away. Mr. Hope told us the Confederates have set up camp just a few miles to the west and north of Gettysburg, so it is still not safe to travel from countryside into town. Will Pa and Jed never be allowed to come back to me? They have been gone for more than a week. That is the longest I have been separated from them in all of my life. If I am honest about what I feel, I must say I am close to tears. June 28, 1863. What did I hear today? Good news? At the candy store, Jane Ellen and I heard that a Union cavalry unit is only 15 miles away. Hooray! Surely the cavalry will drive the Confederates away from our land, so Pa and Jed can finally return safely from Uncle Jack's. June 30th, 1863. We saw an amazing sight today. General Buford's Union cavalry passed right through Gettysburg. There were so many riders on horseback, I could not count them. The older girls handed out cakes and blew kisses in the parade. They seemed to fall in love with every soldier in blue who passed by. Later, I am sad to say that the arrival of the Union soldiers has not frightened the Rebs away. Tonight from our attic window we can see campfires of the Confederates to the west, and we can see the Union campfires twinkling to the south. Mrs. Macaulay said we are headed for a big disaster indeed. She said 2 huge armies so close to each other can only mean a mighty storm is coming, and no one can do a thing to stop it. July 1st, 1863. We were baking bread this morning when the storm hit. We heard cannon fire and galloping and yelling. Then 2 Union soldiers jumped onto our porch. Their faces were bloody. They said fighting had broken out in the west beyond Chambersburg Pike. They told us that the Union soldiers had been outnumbered. Many had been wounded. Now the Rebs were chasing them through town. Mrs. Macaulay has taken the 2 soldiers down to the cellar. Jane Ellen rocks both twins and the baby in her arms. I am sitting on the stairway writing as fast as I can. I am about to slip outside so I can see and hear what is happening for Jane. Later, I am sitting in a tree in the Widow Thomas's front yard. I have just seen terrible things. People screaming in the streets, horses running wild, a bald soldier with his head covered in blood. I almost ran screaming back to Mrs. Macaulay's house, but I knew Jed would want me to see and hear more. I prayed Mrs. Macaulay would not miss me, then I flew the other way. At the square, I turned onto Chambersburg Pike and ran toward the seminary. When I got to the widow Thomas's house, I saw a powerful sight. In the fields below the seminary, thousands of Union soldiers were marching through the corn rows. Their guns gleamed in the light. Rebs were lined up across from them. The men looked like tiny toy soldiers, but they were firing. I saw some Confederate riders galloping up the road. I ran to a tree and began climbing. I climbed and I climbed like I was trying to get to heaven. My heart was beating so fast I almost fell. Now, when I look out between the leaves, the fields are covered with thick smoke. I cannot see the soldiers anymore. I can only hear the roar of their cannons and gunfire. I have made a terrible mistake. I am trapped here. Rebs continue to ride by below. I pray they will not see me. My hand shakes so badly I cannot write more. Probably wasn't a very good decision for her to climb a tree when she should have been safely at home, was it? Late afternoon. I am back at the Macaulay's house. I cannot believe I am still alive. I tried to climb down the tree a bit to hide myself better, but I slipped and fell to the ground. Confederates were riding straight toward me. I screamed in terror. A rebel officer stopped his horse. He jumped from his saddle, grabbed me, and asked where I lived. I could not speak. I just pointed toward town. He pulled me onto his horse and held me tightly and rode off. I thought I had been captured. When we got to the corner of High Street, he stopped and asked if I lived nearby. My teeth were chattering so badly I could not answer. The rebel got down off his horse, then helped me down too. He took my hands and asked my name. I told him my name was Virginia. Trembling all over, I told him to please not hurt me because my mother was a Southern belle. I opened her locket and showed him her tiny picture. I told him she was dead. The officer smiled sadly at me. He said he would never hurt me. He told me his name was Captain Heath. He said he had a little girl about my age. Her name is Lily. Captain Heath and his wife and Lily live in the North Carolina mountains. He and Lily like to pick blueberries together and look at the stars. I said that sounded nice. I thought it truly did. I told him I hoped he saw Lily again soon. Tears came to Captain Heath's eyes. He said he wanted this war to end more than anything so he could see his wife and Lily again. He asked me to pray for peace, and I said I would. Then he said, "Run home, Virginia. God be with you." I waved at him, then I ran away as fast as I could. When I got back to the Macaulays, I found everyone in a state of shock. Confederates had dragged away the 2 Union soldiers hiding in the cellar. Mrs. Macaulay was soothing the twins. They were screaming in terror. Jane Ellen rocked the baby. Her face was white as a sheet. When she saw me, she cried out, "Jenny, where have you been?" "Up a tree," is all I said. Late night, the Rebs are camped out on the sidewalks. They have captured the town. Before we closed the shutters, we watched their ragged shadows under the bright moon. We listened to their wild talk. They sounded happy about the day's fighting. They said tomorrow they would whip the Yankees once and for all. I cannot rest. In my mind, I still see the smoke in the fields and the bald man with blood on his head. I keep thinking about Captain Heath. Is he talking wild rebel talk tonight? Or is he thinking of Lily instead? I cannot tell anyone about him. But I know now that not all Confederates are bad people. I pray that God ends this war so Captain Heath can look at the stars with Lily again. I pray Pa and Jed and I can picnic near the pond again, and Paul can play his violin while a breeze makes the willows sway. July 2nd, 1863. Since early morning we have heard rifles popping. Everyone is jumping. Mrs. Macaulay has been baking bread night and day. A while ago, Mr. Hoke came by. He said that last night nearly the entire Union Army arrived. General Meade's Army of the Potomac marched in by moonlight. They camped at the crest of Cemetery Hill and slept among the tombstones. My mother's tombstone says, "May she rest in peace." What must she think with soldiers camping on her grave? So Virginia's had some scary things happening to her, and she's writing everything down. Remember the very first video I did? I asked you to write down what's going on when you're stuck at home. We're all here, sheltering in place. away from school and away from our friends. I hope that you're writing some things down. I'm anxious to hear about your experiences, and I'm really anxious to get back to school. I will see you again the next time.